Hey BookTube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. I am here today because one of my goals for 2020 was to read all 4 books by Betty Smith, who is most widely known for A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And before I begin, I just want to say that I initially, at the beginning of 2020, thought we'd be able to do this in January, February, April, and May, go through these 4 books. But one of the books was that I didn't own was being reprinted this year, and it was initially going to come out in May, and that got pushed back to November. So my Betty Smith reading has been really stretched out over the course of 2020. And I also did this project with Joey from Game of Authors, as well as, and I'm so sorry, Loretta. I don't remember Loretta's YouTube name. I don't think she has I feel pretty confident she doesn't have a channel. But for the first 3 books, we were pretty good. When I did finally get the last book that I needed to read by Betty Smith, it was difficult because I had it in hand and I couldn't stop reading it. So I kind of got carried away and pushed ahead in front of them. So my apologies, but I do appreciate them joining. Just to give you a little bit of information about Betty Smith before I talk about the 4 books. She was born Elizabeth Lillian Wanner. I'm not exactly sure how to say it. She lived from 1896 to 1972, so she was about 75 when she died. And she was born to first-generation German immigrants, which really surprised me because her characters are Irish or have some sort of Irish ancestry. I do believe her stepfather was Irish. She did very well in school and had poems published and things like that, but in 8th grade, at the age of 14, she had to quit school and she had to go to work. Eventually, by the time she was 18, she was able to go to a girls' school in Brooklyn during the day, and then she had a job at night. But she, again, was only able to do 2 years of that before her job turned to being a day job, and so she couldn't go to the school anymore. Her first husband, she was married 3 times, and her first husband, George Smith, who is also a German American, he was going to the University of Michigan to study law. And through a long chain of series of events, including the birth of their 2 daughters, eventually Betty Smith was able to attend classes at the University of Michigan. Sort of like, I don't know if she had to pay for them or she was able to audit them or what exactly the situation was, but she started writing plays. And when I read that, that really made a lot of sense, because if you read Betty Smith, there is so much dialogue. Don't get me wrong, there is still definitely descriptions. You still feel like you're in Brooklyn of whatever time it is that she's writing about, and yeah, so she started off with plays. She got accepted to Yale for a fellowship, and she did that for 2 years, and then it ended along with any money. And what really sucks about the whole thing is that because she never graduated from high school, the University of Michigan never granted her a degree, even though she had enough credits, and Yale would not give her a master's degree. I believe it was in creative writing, but they would not. So they gave her the fellowship, but she had no degree whatsoever to back that up. In 1936, she moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. There have been many editions, of course, of all of her books. So this is the cover that I initially had of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I mean, obviously, I had to replace it, is what I'm trying to say. It got stained by a bookcase that hadn't properly been taken care of. So I've always loved the cover for this, for A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and it does have some extras in the back. And then there was also PS editions of some of the books, or the other three lesser known books. And then this year they reprinted all four, and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn looks different, but the other three all kind of look like this. So kind of this tint to them. The first book that Betty Smith wrote, and it was really when she moved to Chapel Hill that she started kind of pursuing that and thinking about that. And so this was the first book she wrote, and it is, it's such an incredible book. And I love it, and there's a reason why this is her most famous book, because it is the best. It is the best of the four. And this book came out in 1943. It's been adapted for the screen twice. It was also made into a musical that appeared on Broadway. So, and I think Betty Smith helped to write the dialogue for that. So this is her first book and her best book, but I will say there is a theme throughout all four of her books of women who are tough, women who are poor. I mean, just really struggling. And they'll have some kind of connection to Brooklyn. I swear to God they're all Irish, but I could be wrong. I'm starting to doubt myself because of learning that Betty Smith was born to German immigrants. But anyway, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is a coming of age story of Francie Nolan, and this is the one book that Betty Smith would say was her kind of, was more autobiographical. Obviously, she changed things around, I'm sure, you know, I mean, it's not totally right, but, and man, there are just some really, really beautiful scenes and interactions, and you just really feel like you know the main characters so well and sympathize and empathize with them. So it's a great book. If you only read one Betty Smith book, this should definitely be it. But I think if you read this, you will want to read her other works. So the next book she wrote was Tomorrow Will Be Better in 1947. So this is the last one that I read in November. And it is sad, and I think this is the book that made me realize, like, actually all Betty Smith's books, there's this feeling at the end of that, oof, like things just aren't quite as good as we hoped for. I think this one really emphasizes what all of us do, like, oh, we all procrastinate. In some ways, this is a book about procrastinating our love for other people, or kindness that we could show to other people, that we put it off and we put it off and we put it off. And the main character, Margie Shannon, in this really feels the brunt of that from all the people in her life. This novel, because it was published so close to A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, many critics considered it gloomy. But again, I really think, actually in hindsight, that all four of Betty Smith's books there is a note of sadness in them. The next book she published was Maggie-Now, which is about Maggie Moore. And the reason why it's called Maggie-Now is, as a child, you know, people are like, Maggie, now do this. Maggie, now do this now, whatever. So that's kind of, and it just sticks with her. This was published in 1958. And I read this, I think in April. think we read this in April. And of the 4, I remember this one the least. One woman's struggles and successes as she grapples with timeless questions of desire, duty, self-sacrifice, and the quest for fulfillment. And again, I think you could say that about all of Betty Smith's books. But again, this one, it takes place in Brooklyn. This is the old first edition of Maggie-Now. So there's a great picture in here at the beginning. So that was the scene and really the heart. Like, you feel like you know Brooklyn in that time and during the Depression and before World War II. Her last book is called Joy in the Morning. Again, I have the PS edition, but there's a new edition out. It still has, I believe, the same things that this PS edition does. And that's true for all of them. There's letters from, the daughters, granddaughters. This one, the Joy in the Morning one, was also made into a film in 1965, and there's some stuff in the back of this about when the film came out and how I think they made it Betty Smith Day in Chapel Hill. So, and this one follows Annie McGarry. She starts out at the age of 18 by marrying Carl Brown, and they moved to Midwestern University. So you can imagine it could be Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? And I almost feel like this one is a sequel to A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, in some ways. But I really, this is just a really great portrait of marriage that you don't get from all 4 of her books. So this is, about the beginning of their marriage, their struggles. Again, so poor. They are so dirt poor, even though they're out of Brooklyn. But man, and Annie really has to kind of figure out where her place is, and she doesn't kind of understand sort of university, behavior, or kind of her place in that community. She does take classes at the university like Betty Smith did, and does start to write. So I thought that was, I feel like there is some autobiography in this one as well. But I really think this is a great book about marriage and how tough it can be. And so anyway, all of these books are probably 4 stars with the exception of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which is of course 5. And I really enjoyed reading these throughout the year. They were a highlight for me. This one, when I finally did get it, I was so compelled by this one that I just could not stop reading. It was like a freight train. So I feel very bad. I broke a lot of buddy read rules, and so again, my apologies to Loretta and Joey, but I thank them for joining me on the journey. If you have read Betty Smith books, I hope you'll tell me about your experience in the comment section down below. If there's something that's held you back from reading Betty Smith, what is it? What your experience with her books has been over time. I look forward to your comments in the comment section down below. BookTube, take care of yourself. Stay safe. Please be well. Remember to be kind to others and be kind to yourself. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, BookTube.